Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about why I hate Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man Homecoming, and why I'm not a particular huge fan of the MCU Spider-Man. Now, I briefly mentioned how I don't like the Tom Holland Spider-Man. I used to until Homecoming came out. And this hurts me a lot because I am a huge devoted Spider-Man fan. He was like one of the first superheroes I've ever seen. He was the first Marvel superhero I've ever seen. His comic might have been the first one I seen. Either that or Ninja Turtles. I can't really remember. I'm getting old. I can't remember everything. But I do remember his are the ones that I bought along with Ninja Turtles. And so I've always been a fan of Peter Parker. I've always liked what he stood for. I've always liked how Stan Lee interpreted him. I've always liked every adaptation that has come until more recent cartoons and stuff. Like, heck, even I like Spider-Man Unlimited, well, a lot of people don't. I just see it for what it is. It's a wacky adventure through like the multiverse and stuff. And so, and plus the suit's really cool. And so it took me a while to get into Spectacular Spider-Man. I like the older like 70s and 80s Spider-Man cartoons, and I love the 90s one. Spider-Man the animated series. Heck, I even kind of like the MTV one. And it took me a good while to like the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. It took me a long while. And basically, when he went into the Spider-Verse, that's when I started liking the show. Everything before that, I hated. And so, and then I do not like Marvel Spider-Man, that one cartoon. That's just awful in every way, shape, form, and possible. But his character has been evolving over the years, so expect changes here and there. Okay, fine. Take it as it is. Just like with Spider-Man Unlimited. I took it for what it is. And one reason why I took it for what it is because for the most part, Peter Parker still remained that of Peter Parker. Not much had changed. His costume changed, the environment changed, his villains changed, but Peter Parker was still Peter Parker. I can't say that for the MCU Spider-Man, especially in Homecoming and most definitely in Far From Home. It's just, and Far From Home, that was just a terrible movie. At least with Homecoming, they tried to be that of a Spider-Man movie, but somebody pulled them on a leash and be like, this is a Disney movie, and we like ourselves some Iron Man. And so, thus, this is why the MCU Spider-Man isn't really Spider-Man, he's Iron Man Jr., and he's been Iron Man Jr. ever since Homecoming, to tell you the truth. And so when he was teased in Ant-Man at the end credit that there was a Spider-Man in the universe, it's like, no, it can't be. Sony ain't gonna give up the rights. Well, those leaked emails of that one lady prove that they will let Disney borrow Spider-Man. And thus we got Spider-Man and Captain America Civil War. And he was amazing and awesome in that movie. He was everything you expected a Spider-Man to be. Peter Parker had his hair parted a certain way to look like a nerd. His hair reminded me so much of Tobey Maguire's hair. He was more concerned about being a neighborhood Spider-Man, protecting the people of the city, and he really didn't care about everything the Avengers do. Because he was newly bitten from that spider, so he hasn't really operated that long. And so Tony needs his help, and he gives him a new suit. And the suit at that time looked really good and amazing. I didn't like the liberties they took with his suit to make it look more MCU-ish. With that whole... Okay, you know how the MCU has this weird pattern of like a Y shape in the middle of the chest in every outfit? Like, look at every single last MCU costume. There is a Y shape in the middle chest part, in the stomach area of every costume. Doesn't matter where this costume came from. It could be like Asgard, Wakanda, Captain America. It doesn't matter. Captain Marvel. They all have that Y-shaped thing in the middle. And so they took liberties of having like his web shooters exposed on the outside and this and that. And they gave him that mechanical looking spider symbol in the middle of his chest and those weird mechanical looking pants pattern. Which I was like, okay, whatever, fine. This is like a new version. I'll be okay with it. Then once I heard he was getting his new movies, his own movies, I'm like, okay, maybe they'll change it up. And so, but when he was in Civil War, he was everything you expected. He climbed on walls beautifully and everything. He swung amazingly. His webbing was cool. His outfit was cool. But I'm all like, man, his outfit is really stretchy. They must got some really good material. No, I found out later on it was CGI and stuff. And his lenses, they contract and they close and they open and everything. And his opening where he took the shield from Captain America, that was awesome. You know what I'm saying? And he was very smart by when he was fighting Winter Soldier and Falcon, he was asking about like, oh, how does your suit operate? And oh, that's cool, you have a mechanical arm, and and all this other stuff. And he started throwing out some like science and everything as he's fighting them. And so all of that was awesome and stuff. And then how he took down Ant-Man by the whole Star Wars reference, that was cool. It lets you know he has a nerdy side. And then they gave him his own movie. Now I was ecstatic when Homecoming was about to come out. I saw the trailer. The trailer looked great. It had some nice clips in it, and so he still had the suit from the last movie. So okay, fine, whatever. I was still okay with it. And then so I'm like, man, this is gonna be an awesome movie. So I bought like my ticket. I'm sitting down in like the movie theater. Like I'm just like jazzed up, man. You know what I'm saying? I was happy. This was before I had tinnitus in my ear. So that's back when I used to go to like movie theaters. And so I think the last movie I saw in the theaters was Endgame. And so I risked my tinnitus for that. I was risking for that. And so I was like happy. I was pumped, like, yeah, man, this is gonna be an awesome movie. Then I come out the movie theater and I'm just like, what in the world did I just watch? This doesn't even feel like a Spider-Man movie. And it's because they really went the Disney route with him. Now, I've been wondering for the longest time, even until last night, or actually this morning, I've been wondering. I've always been blaming Disney, Marvel, and Kevin Feige for how they changed this version of Spider-Man. Basically, it's like this. I look at the MCU Spider-Man as Peter Pan's shadow. The shadow has detached himself from Peter Pan. He has left Neverland, came down to our Earth and everything, and he's kind of just like bopping around doing his own thing. And nobody wants to play with him. And then the real Peter Pan comes down, recaptures his shadow, and now everybody wants to play with him in Neverland. That's how I feel No Way Home is the third movie, because No Way Home is better. Because if you notice, I said why I hate Homecoming and Far From Home, but I didn't mention No Way Home. I'll be talking about that later. And so I've been blaming all the like higher ups and everything, but then I stopped and I thought about this just this morning. What if it's not so much them, but what if it's Sony? Like, think about it. They're only borrowing Spider-Man. They don't have the full rights to him. And this is kind of like how the whole Star Trek thing was when CBS and Paramount and Viacom was like fighting over it with all these new shows that come out. It's Star Trek, but it don't look and feel like Star Trek because they changed so much percentage of it. What if Sony won't let them have the full rights to Spider-Man, the characters, so they have to change things around? This is why so many of all the characters in this universe personality is different from that of what we know as Spider-Man. And I'm thinking it could be because of that. It's just because they don't want him to have the full version of what these characters should be like. Because when they start bringing him back into the Sony verse, they're gonna not want to confuse people, or because they don't want a better version over in Disney. It's kind of like the Hulk situation. See, the Hulk is borrowed from Universal. Marvel still don't have the full rights to the Hulk. That's why we never had a solo Hulk movie. The closest we ever had to that was Thor Ragnarok, when they had to combine a Hulk comic book storyline into Thor's movie. And it's because Universal owns the rights back when Marvel sold everything. And so, well, sold some of their characters. And so, if you've noticed, Mark Ruffalo's Hulk doesn't really act that much like the Hulk anymore. There's no supporting characters except for Thunderbolt Ross, where the actor has now died. Betty has never shown up in the MCU. Nobody has shown up except for Peter's teacher, and that was just coincidence. Only because the actor played a person in the Hulk movie, and then when he played the teacher, he didn't have a name, and then people's all like, "Oh, it's the same guy." So Kevin Feige's like, "Sure, why not?" Like he always does, you know. I'll roll with it, and so like. But if you notice, the Hulk doesn't act anything like he normally does. Like, he hasn't acted the way he's supposed to since the first Avengers movie. And none of his supporting characters are there. And the Hulk has been kind of like comedic ups ever since the first Avengers movie, or since the second one, actually. And that's because they don't own all the rights. They probably only have a percentage of what they can work with. And that's why I'm starting now to think about Spider-Man. But even though they only have a percentage, they didn't have to change that much with the characters and stuff. And that's one of the major problems I have with the MCU Spider-Man and his characters. I don't recognize nobody. And I mean nobody. I ain't talking about them getting race bent or nothing like that. Is that all their personalities have been completely rewritten. Because have you ever noticed something? Like, one reason why a lot of people don't like Marvel Spider-Man is because every character is basically the same. Nobody is different. Everybody in that show is smart. Everybody in that show is either a super villain or a superhero. Almost everybody in that show has some type of spider powers. And that's because they keep trying to bring in all these other spider people from the comics and put them in Spider-Man's show. So he's getting outshadowed and blended in with everybody else. And that is how the MCU spider characters are. Everybody is a genius. And so it's kind of like, why shouldn't he? Because Spider-Man Peter Parker is really supposed to be the only real, true Ipto Funko genius in his universe. Yeah, there are others, but every person he goes to school with is a genius. All of his side characters. Okay, let's see. Let's see. You get the main characters. Then you have what's the other type of characters called? I just had on the tip of my tongue. Not side characters. Those are like teachers and stuff. I'm just going to say recurring. The recurring characters are all smart. The main characters are all smart. Then you have the side characters who are also kind of smart and not very funny. And they're trying to be funny. And so when it comes to these characters, it's all like, Peter Parker does not stand out. He's now not the only super genius because there are others there. Their version of MJ, Michelle, whatever the J stands for, Watson, she is smart. And Mary Jane is not supposed to be smart, but technically she's not Mary Jane, she's just that version of it. Not only when it comes to that, of their version of MJ, she is completely the polar opposite of what Mary Jane Watson is supposed to be. This version of Michelle, who is their Mary Jane, this is a emo girl. A emo girl who is obsessed with dead stuff and morbid stuff. She has this dry, sarcastic wit to her. And it's just like, she is nothing like the Mary Jane we know. And not only that, but Zendaya, the only time Zendaya ever truly acted like that version of MJ was in Homecoming. And Far From Home and No Way Home, those they should have had two different titles for that. That sounded different. She in no Far From Home, she still had a little bit of that emo-ness, but she was a little bit more friendly and talking to more people. And I'll get into like their whole love thing later, which was so forced. And so like um yeah, it's just like she is the complete opposite of what we know that a Mary Jane Watson to be. And not only that, but she dresses like an old woman. And at times, and Far From Home, she dresses like a homeless woman with that trench coat and everything. She's still dry, but not as dry as she was in the first one. Now, in the other two movies, she's no longer is acting. Now I think she's just being herself, which what a lot of the actors and actresses in these movies are doing. Nobody is playing a actual character, not even Tom Holland no more. The only time Tom Holland ever played Spider-Man really was in probably Civil War, maybe No Way Home, a little bit of Homecoming, um, and maybe in one of the Avengers movies. That's the only time he's ever really been himself, when he's trying to act like a character. Other than that, he's just being himself. That's why him and Zendaya have such a great chemistry, because they're dating in real life. They're not even acting like they're dating in an acting kind of way. And don't even get me started on the Ned Leeds character. This dude is literally just being himself and everything. And so, with back to Zendaya and everything, MJ is just like, okay, I know she's MJ. I know she's a version of Mary Jane Watson, but no part of that do I ever see it when I look at her, and especially when I hear it from her. And it's just, she doesn't dress like the party girl. She don't act like the party girl. She doesn't have the personality of one. She doesn't speak like one. She's just dull and boring in Homecoming. And so with Pete, and the same thing with Flash Thompson. Like, 'cause here's the thing, these characters didn't even have last names in Homecoming. And then so once they like, okay, fine, people accept these people, so we're gonna like, give them last names now. And then so Flash, he doesn't act like the typical Flash. The best Flashes we ever had was in the other Spider-Man universe movies. And because Flash is a literal bully, physically and verbally. And in this version, he's just verbally a jerk. Like, he's not even so much a bully, he's just like a jerk. And he never tries to fight Peter and stuff. He never picks on him in a bully kind of way. And so I just don't see this dude. And also not only that, but he's a genius as well. I just don't see this guy leaving high school, going into the military, losing his legs, and becoming Agent Venom. I just don't see that version, you know? Now, he is obsessed with Spider-Man, just like, all the other ones are. And in Far From Home, he winked at Peter when he's all like, man, I love that Spider-Man. He's awesome. Then he winked at Peter. And it's kind of like, oh, he knows. He knows and everything. Just like when he was on the bus and he's all like, man, I'm not even like picking on you and stuff like that. I just want like these glasses and everything. And then that's when Peter smacked him and stuff. And it's just like, he probably suspects, you know? And so, like, then there's Ned. Now, I don't know much about Ned from the comics. He's never shown up in, like, well, he showed up in Spectacular Spider-Man. From what my gathering of him is, him and Betty are supposed to be adults, and they work with Peter at the Daily Bugle, because Peter Parker's, a teenager and stuff. At some point in time, him and Betty try to date. It don't really go nowhere. And then Ned and Betty end up dating, just like they do in Far From Home. Okay, fine. But then at some point, Ned becomes the Hobgoblin. And so I'm not really sure what his personality is supposed to be, but I'm pretty sure it is not the MCU version of it. The Ned in the MCU version, surprisingly, steals every scene he is in, mostly by what he says or how he overacts to everything. And It's annoying. Like, I can't even begin to even tell you. Like, it's just, he gets on my nerves. Um, he is funny, but he steals the whole show and everything. And he's not supposed to do that. He's only supposed to be the best friend and everything. But he ends up always stealing every scene he is in. And it gets to the point where sometimes when he steals it, it's super duper annoying. And your focus is not supposed to be on him, it's supposed to be on Peter and stuff. And because it reminds me of what happened in No Way Home. When Peter was upset and they found him, MJ gives him a hug. That makes sense. That's his girlfriend. And so she's giving him like a real passionate hug. And then here comes Ned, just like a couple seconds later, in his Ned type of way. And he puts his arms around both of them and give them a hug. That was nice, sweet, and caring, but it stole from that moment. Because it's just like him inserting himself into it like a threesome. And that's what he does. He just inserts himself. He's literally crammed in so many different scenes and stuff. And they make him the comedic relief, which I am tired. I don't see this version becoming the Hobgoblin at all, if he ever was to become the Hobgoblin. And not only that, but his relationship with this version of Betty Brant makes no sense. It's like they have no chemistry. It's just they didn't even talk in the first movie. They barely talked in the second, and they just somehow hooked up and everything. And now she's all lovey-dovey in love with him, and that don't make no sense because they have no chemistry and stuff. They had no build-up. It just happened, and now they're acting like they're a serious couple within just a couple of minutes and stuff. Now, this version of Betty, her hair is wrong color, but she's a genius as well. We don't know much about her because she has no personality in this movie, other than being a nice girl. She is nothing like the Sam Raimi's version of Betty Brant. She's nothing like the spectacular Spider-Man version. She's just there. She's an empty shell. They don't give her nothing much to do. But we know she wants to be a journalist and everything. And because she's like a assistant in like the comics, so they kind of bumped her up. So that's nice. And we see that in Far From Home because No Way Home. They should have named those things differently. Ugh. And we see that she is a reporter and everything. First working for like the school, and I think she's working someplace else now. Another problem I'm having with this is that nobody really truly hates Spider-Man or Peter Parker for that matter in the MCU. Don't worry, I'm going to get into Spider-Man later. I haven't even mentioned him yet. Nobody really ever truly hates him. Period. Neither of the characters. There was no J.J. Jameson in the early drafts. And Homecoming, not even there. He doesn't show up until the very end credits of Far From Home. So he doesn't have nobody to bash him. Because he's supposed to try to turn the people against him. And who does that? Quentin Beck, the Mysterio dude. He's the one who turned the people against Peter, not Jameson. And so Jameson is a very hilarious character, a very mean character. You know he has good intentions, but the man is hateful and everything. And so it's kind of like we don't get none of that. We don't get why, because he wants the world to believe that costume vigilantes are a menace to society, especially that of Spider-Man. He believes in old-fashioned, good old like law enforcement type stuff. Police, military, firefighters, astronauts, like his son, stuff like that. He believes those are the real heroes that are getting overlooked by superheroes. And it would make for a nice argument because the MCU is built full of superheroes. So it would be nice if he's that opposition, but he wasn't at first. He doesn't show up to the very end credits of the second movie, and then he is in the third movie where he's spilling a little hate, but his character doesn't really do much when we actually see him away from his like studio and everything. He has no comedicness. He's not evil. He's not vengeful. He's not helping to mistakenly create like villains and stuff. He's just some old school reporter who has his own talk show, and he's spilling hate on Spider-Man, talking about, oh, he's a menace, he's a menace. But here's the problem with No Way Home. Why does he hate Spider-Man and mass vigilantes? We don't know why. We're never given a reason. In the 90s show, we're given a very good reason as to why that is. And that's because a masked man shot and killed his wife. And he's never liked masked people because of that. Now, to be fair, in the Sam Raimi one, we don't really know why, for the most part, why he hates Spider-Man either, other than the fact of just hating him. But then in the second movie, we get a little bit more reason why when his son shows up and everything. It's just only because, those like the real heroes to him and stuff like that. But for the most part, to be fair, in the Sam Raimi ones, he just hates Spider-Man just because the comics say to. But at least he's hilarious in that and stuff. And at least he does try to help Peter Parker. This version didn't even know who Peter Parker was because Peter Parker never worked at his Daily Bugle thing. Now, let's get into Aunt May. I don't know who this woman is, but she is no Aunt May. She does not act like Aunt May. She doesn't even look like Aunt May. Aunt May is supposed to be an old, decrepit looking woman. And this is not no old, decrepit looking woman. She's younger, she's hotter. And that's because I believe that Marvel, Disney is ageist. And they've been proving that as time go on with a lot of their characters. I forget where I read this from. It was some article. I don't even know if it had to do with Disney, Marvel or not. But somebody said something about young people. I think it was Marvel, Disney. They said something about young people don't want to see old people on screen. And they kind of just like, whatever. And just like, don't pay attention. They want to see people younger and this and that. We've been seeing that happen lately. Now, in the first the first Iron Man movie, there were older people, older villains. That's because back then, Iron Man wasn't Marvel's property at that time. They were another studio's company. And so when the success of that happened and the MCU got formed in Marvel Studios, they got the rights back to Iron Man very quickly and started making movies and building the MCU. And then if you notice, in the second Iron Man movie, Justin Hammer is way younger than what he's supposed to be. And so, like, he's supposed to be an old man. This dude's young, he's dancing, he's charismatic. And now look at Sony's Madam Web. She's supposed to be, once again, an old, decrepit looking lady. And they got the younger version of a different Madam Web, not even the one people know and love. And so it's affecting both studios. People are not wanting to bring in older people now. And if they do, they make some excuse as to why they have to de-age them and everything. Oh, let's bring in Nick Fury to like Captain Marvel, but let's set this back in the day when he's younger. So let's de-age him. Let's bring in the Spider-Man villains from the other universes, but let's de-age them because let's just say they're brought in before they die, as opposed to what they will look like in the present day. And so this Aunt May, she acts more like Peter's big sister. She doesn't hate Spider-Man. She loves the idea of Peter being Spider-Man. She is in a relationship with Happy Hogan. And she's not a woman struggling to pay her bills. Now, she is working at a homeless center, which that's something Aunt May did in the comics and also in a video game. But it's ironic because the Aunt May in the video game, the Insomniac ones, if you notice, that Aunt May isn't really old either. And she just so happens to work at a homeless place. That's more than a coincidence, in my opinion. Because that Peter Parker's face, when they redid it, looks more like Tom Holland. That's more than a coincidence. And so Peter never has a real reason to worry about Aunt May. Her health's not failing. She's not in danger. The only thing he's worried about is her dating Happy Hogan, and that's literally it, But it's not until the third movie when she of course dies and everything, and he's saddened by that. They finally started to slowly make him into Spider-Man. So let's get into Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And now that brings me to Peter Parker himself. Iron Man Jr. Can't even call him Spider-Man, tell you the truth, because he doesn't really act like Spider-Man. He doesn't have all of the personality traits that makes Spider-Man Spider-Man from the comics and everything. He was, like I said before, Civil War, he was cool. In Infinity War, he was cool. In the game, he was alright. But then in the first Homecoming movie, something was just off with this dude. So, why don't I particularly like this version? Now, I do like him more in No Way Home, but we need to see what an actual real MCU true Spider-Man movie is about. At some point in time, somebody said, hey, let's make this dude Iron Man Jr. to the point where he's supposed to literally take over for Tony after he dies and stuff. Now, one reason why I don't like this version is because everything is literally given to this dude. And he never really has to like make nothing of his own. He never truly has to like strive to make things better, because even if he messes up, all he has to do is call like some like person he knows that's like a billionaire or works for a billionaire, or like some Avenger, or just somebody who knows one of them, and everything, they just give him what he needs and then he fixes the solution. It's like that with every movie. It's even like that in No Way Home, because like for some reason they want to keep pairing this Spider-Man up with either a shield agent or like an Avenger or somebody who works for Iron Man. Every movie for some bizarre reason, and I don't know why, because Peter Parker Spider-Man is a loner. That is what he does. He's not about teamwork. He works in teams, but then after a while he gets irritated and he leaves. And so for some reason they keep trying to push this narrative that this dude wants to be like this huge team player who can't do nothing on his own without somebody holding his hand. They write this version of Spider-Man for kids, babies, and everything. Like, take Far From Home, when he's like in Europe and the elementals are fighting, destroying stuff, and then he sees Mysterio and he's all like, I can help out because I'm really strong and really sticky. And he says that with a Mardi Gras mask on his face. It's humorous, but it's unneeded, and it looks like it was written for babies, and that's how the MCU is. It's written for babies. The inconsistency of this Spider-Man is ridiculous. It's like the writers don't even know like how to write for this dude and to keep him consistent through all like the entire MCU. Every movie he's in, he has a different motive and everything. Fine, but at least keep the character consistent. And it's never like that. In Civil War, he doesn't want to be an Avenger. He doesn't want to help like fight on a team. He just wants to save his neighborhood because he's newly bitten to that of the spider, and he makes his own makeshift web shooters and his own makeshift like costume. All of this impresses Tony Stark. And then so after like me and Tony Stark and hanging out with these Avengers, now he's obsessed with them. And now in the Homecoming movie, that's the only thing he wants to be, an Avenger. And so he still is allowed to keep the suit that Tony made for him. And he uses it and he realizes, oh, it has an AI feature. And so he's testing everything out, but there are some things that are like locked where he's not allowed to use. And Tony has like an off switch for like the suit in case like things get too crazy or he misuses it or something like that. Because Tony doesn't want him to be an Avenger. Tony doesn't want him to face aliens and monsters, because Tony knows exactly what that is like, having PTSD from it and stuff. And so in the first movie, they strip away everything that makes Peter Parker Spider-Man. They took away his skyscrapers. That is his home. That is where he swings around. Instead, they got him swinging around the woods and everything in Homecoming. And so after that, I've already mentioned how they like changed his characters, side characters and stuff. Then on top of that, his suit is so advanced. He can basically just let it work in auto mode and everything if he really wanted to. And so like but then that one thing happened towards. Oh, not only that, but his villains aren't even really his villains. They're his villains from the comics, but their personalities are different, and they have vendettas against Tony Stark. They are technically Tony's enemies, not that of Peter Parker's. He just so happens to fight them for some reason. And so with all of that, and things go like haywire and stuff, Tony takes the suit back from him. But not before he disables all the features that can, the protective modes and stuff, the safe modes. Tony at some point in time is irritated, and he's just kind of like, you know what, that's it, you're done. You're no longer a superhero. Tony doesn't get to make that decision. So then he goes in his makeshift costume and he saves the day towards the end. And then we get this cool scene from like the comics and everything. So letting you know that at some point in time, somebody is paying attention to the comics. This is where I feel like the writers and directors wanted to make a Spider-Man movie, but somebody in Disney, Marvel, and Kevin Feige's on we're making him an Iron Man Jr. So then after the day is saved, he is now giving a new suit, the armored spider suit. And Tony's all like, you will get this when you're ready and blah, 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 and you become an Avenger, blah, blah, blah. Well, I think he wants to give it to him, but no, I think he wants to give it to him. But then Peter's all like, nah, that's all right. That's I don't need it, something like that. Somebody doesn't want to give it to him. I don't know who, but it's somebody. I forget which one. Because I think Peter decides, you know what, I'm just going to, stay in my lane and everything. Then, of course, the Infinity War came, and then he was given the armored spider suit. And I personally wish they would have gave him the one from the comics. That one is way cooler looking in the design. And since they're making him Iron Man Jr., might as well. And so, of course, in that movie, he got dusted by Thanos and everything. And let me bring this up because I just thought about when he got dusted. Because the creator said that his spider sense was going off when he was getting dusted. That's kind of what kept him holding on a little bit longer and stuff. He was trying to like fight it. Where is his spider sense, to tell you the truth? So many things catches this dude by surprise. It's not even funny. It's like, does he even have a spider sense? And then of course the creators are like, sure he does, he's Spider-Man, but we don't really never get to see it except for the Infinity movie. We didn't even get to see it in Homecoming. And because like in Far From Home, people would throw like a banana or a sock or like a ball at him and it will always hit him. That's not how his spider sense technically works. Technically, anything that comes towards him that's considered like a threat is a threat. So things are always like bouncing off. So it's kind of like it's like say like a bully throws like a ball at him, then it will like go off because that's his bully and everything. But I guess, and the only time it doesn't go off is when the symbiotes take over, like Venom or Carnage or something like that. But his spider sense is always supposed to be tingling in case something like comes towards him. You know what I'm saying? And he's constantly getting hit left and right and Far From Home. And it's kind of like, dude, where is your spider sense at? It only appears when like the Russos are using them. Because you heard that chime music from the first Spider-Man, the Raimi's movies, when his spider sense went off, when something was coming towards him, when he was fighting Falcon and Winter Soldier. Now let's get into, also, I want to get into his love interest in the Homecoming movie. So after dating her and everything, she finds out his secret and the dad's secret and this and that. And so they break up and they move away. They just completely got rid of her. Why? Because people don't want to see him with Lynn Allen or Debbie, whatever her name is, none of the Grant women or Brant women. They just want to see. Oh, they don't even have a what's her face? The blonde girl. What's her name? Something Stacy. Gwen Stacy. They don't even have her. Because that's who I thought Betty was at first. No, they just want him to be with MJ because that's who he is in the comics. That's why they did that in the Sam Raimi movies. All right, fine. So they forced that relationship in the second movie. Now, in the second movie, he's completely over Liz. And now in the second movie, he's just like panning over MJ. But why? They barely had any scenes in the first movie. They didn't even pay attention to each other really. And he found her kind of weird and she just did her emo thing. They're so polar opposite. He's this plucky, youthful, want everything to live type person, and she's just morbid and emo and loves death. That's not similar. But for whatever reason, he's pining after her. And so in the second movie, now after wanting to be an Avenger, and then after becoming an Avenger in Infinity War and dying, and then coming back alive in an Endgame, now all of a sudden he doesn't even want to be a superhero no more. So, okay, fine. Like, that's something that does happen to him in the comic books and everything. But there's like, and I'm guessing it's maybe because he died. No, it's because he just wants to be a little normal and go on his vacation and get the girl. That's not a good enough storyline for me. And so, one thing they pointed out in the Far From Home movie is that this Spider-Man is stupid. He is stupid from beginning to end. And Peter is supposed to be smart. So the thing is like he doesn't want to be Spider-Man. He doesn't take his costume with him, but yet he's in this foreign country and then all this bad stuff starts happening. So now he's all like, okay, now I gotta go save the world. But of course, Spider-Man can't be seen in another country while Peter Parker is there because somebody's gonna like pick up on that, and people start to do that. And so he doesn't even take his suit with him when he's walking around town. So he's like, crap, now he has to fight in his regular clothes, but wear a mask. But before he put on the Mardi Gras mask, he was swinging around town with his clothes and his face exposed. And then when he put on the Mardi Gras mask, he's still wearing his regular clothes. And so people are going to recognize him. So then he sees Mysterio and everything saving the day from the Elementals. Once again, he can't even have his own villains. The Elementals are more of an Iron Man villain stuff. But of course, these are fake Elementals or whatever. And so now he's all like, woohoo, like this is a new Iron Man for me. This whole Quentin Beck dude. Now this movie, not only is Spider-Man stupid in this movie, but everybody's stupid in this movie. Fake Nick Fury exposes Spider-Man's identity to all the SHIELD agents. He's all like, oh, you don't need no mask here. We all know your identity. So he just exposed that. Then when Peter's in the bar with Quentin, he exposes his identity to all those people there. So all of Quentin people know who he is and stuff. And then, so even like, the writers aren't even that smart in this movie. So then all of a sudden, he just tells MJ, hey, I'm Spider-Man. She's like, wait, what? And then he's like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. Why would he do that? A real Spider-Man knows you can't reveal your identity because it will put your loved ones in danger. But the thing with this Spider-Man is this dude always has backup support. So nobody's going to be in danger. And so he doesn't have any consequences. He doesn't have any stakes. He knows everything's going to be all right. And so like, that's very irritating because Spider-Man has like a mountain of problems, both him and Peter Parker does. And so when she's all like, oh, I knew it. Well, I was 60%. Like, I thought that was you. I thought you were Spider-Man and everything. And then did you notice something? Like throughout that whole beginning of the movie, she's not really interested in him. Like, but he's interested in her. But then as soon as she knows he's Spider-Man, all of a sudden she's into him. And all of a sudden she's protecting him. And then all of a sudden in the next movie, she's like falling in love with him and stuff. I think she's not in love with Peter. She's in love with Spider-Man. Think about it. He died. Technically she did too. And she loves dead stuff. Not only that, but he fights villains and monsters and this and that, and they die, and she loves death. But then what really irritates me is that she's all like, I figured it out. And no, she didn't. He told her, but she's like, I figured it out. And it's just like, no, you didn't. You might be smart, you ain't that smart. And so then, like, of course, there's the whole Edith thing. Because Quentin Beck Mysterio isn't really Spider-Man's villain. He's Tony's villain. He's pissed at Tony. But he's a villain from the comics of Spider-Man. And so Tony, for some dumb reason, because the writers are stupid, decides to give Peter Parker one of the most dangerous weapons in the entire world. He gives him Edith, the glasses that he had that can control all of Stark's military stuff, and drones and missiles and everything. Why? Because when he first met Peter, he was impressed, but he wanted to keep him out of harm's way. So when the fight got a little too serious, he told him just to sit back and stay home. If you're injured, go home. Like, you're done. You did a good job, kid. That was in Civil War. Then, of course, in Homecoming, he had safety features to shut off the suit in case Peter got himself into too much trouble and everything. So apparently he didn't trust him. But then he needed Peter's backup support in Infinity War because he had nobody else to back him up as he was out in outer space. So he just automatically made him an Avenger. And so he gives this dangerous technology to somebody who's proven that he messes up every time he's in a movie. And so, like, of course, he almost gets that one kid killed, which was kind of funny. But then after that, if you notice, when he's talking to Quentin in the bar, the waitress is all like, oh, you dropped these. He drops the most important weapon in the entire world. He's not even paying attention that he has it. And then all of a sudden, he's all like, you know what, Quentin, you're the man. You're the new Iron Man. These glasses are for you. I'm going to give you these glasses. You're an Avenger now. Okay, first of all, he's not allowed to make nobody an Avenger. Two, why in the world would he give these glasses to somebody he just met? Like, he just met this dude. And he hands them over to him. That's the dumbest thing the writers could have written. But what's even dumber is that this Quentin who said, oh, you know, I'm from a parallel dimension. No, he's not. He's from their Earth. He just tricked everybody. So why didn't fake Nick Fury or anybody in S.H.I.E.L.D. actually look this dude up? Because if this dude is from their world, he has a social security number. He's worked in Stark Industries. He pays his taxes and everything. They should be able to figure out that this dude is telling a lie. And so when he says he's from another dimension, they should have tried to find the real Quentin Beck from their dimension. And when they realize they can't find him, then boom, this dude is lying. The writers are stupid, and they wrote this for little kids and everything. And then, so of course, now he's putting like MJ's life in danger, and Betty and Ned, so he has to like save them and everything. Now the visual effects in Far From Home are really, really good. Like the whole Mysterio stuff. I didn't know what was going on. This is classic Mysterio. This should have been how the entire movie was, but it wasn't, because we're led to believe this dude's an anti-hero, or a hero, I should say. And so then he does the typical villain thing. Oh, you found out my identity. I gotta kill you now. and it's just kind of like, this isn't a good movie. This is a terrible movie. But I do love the visual effects. Now, somebody once said that Far From Home is better than Spider-Man 2. Whatever, man. You must have been high when you said that. Just like this one other person said that, oh, this Spider-Man, he can fight out in the field, and then if he needs backup support, he can have Zendaya and Ned like tag along with him, and they can fight in the field with him, doing the tech support stuff. No, that should never happen. Okay, this is not the Flash. This is not Cisco. This is not the Ice Girl, Caitlin, and this is not Barry Allen. This is Spider-Man. Spider-Man goes out in the field by himself, and that is that. He is smart enough to figure out all the tech stuff by himself. He doesn't need their help. I get it. Sam Raimi screwed up when he had Mary Jane Watson be the damsel in distress in every movie. This caused Mark Webb to give Gwen Stacy, to help him out in the field. Fine, that was fine that one time in the way she did it, but she wasn't always out there in the field helping out and everything. We don't need Ned, and we don't need MJ nowhere near the field as Spider-Man is doing his thing. I don't need that. I'm not watching that baby movie. I watch adult movies, not those adult movies. So, and then so they is saved and everything, but it's kind of like, dude, he went through all. Like this dude makes so many mistakes, it's not even funny. And not only that, because he's a nerd. And I get it, he's in the Star Wars, and I get it, even the younger generation of nerds are in the Star Wars, but the younger generation is more into the newer Star Wars. Why would they go back so far back in time to like the older stuff? And so the writing is kind of like inconsistent along with that, the characters, and along with that, Spider-Man himself. And because have you ever noticed in all three of these movies, MJ and Ned, who are his two closest friends, are never really in danger. Like they're pretty much in danger with everybody else with everything that's going on, but they're never in danger like Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy was in the other Spider-Man movies. So he doesn't have that true emotional stake of trying to save them and everything. And he couldn't even save MJ in the third movie. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man had to save her and stuff. And so I'm just not thrilled with this version of Spider-Man. Now, like I said before, I will be talking about No Way Home because it is a much better Spider-Man movie for the MCU. It's not perfect, but it is good nevertheless. And he is slowly now starting to become a real Spider-Man. But when it comes to these movies, he's just Iron Man Jr. Like when he ends up getting arrested, he breaks out easily, and the dude has his Spider-Man costume, and they now know his identity, but they think he's that monkey dude or whatever. Because think about it, man. Who's really gonna be fooled by that black costume and him calling himself monkey something? Like the dude has powers just like Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. And not only that, but Tom Holland Spider-Man takes his mask off way too much to where all these people can see him. And it don't make no sense. And then, so of course, Quentin Beck exposes his identity at the end of the movie. So then it's like, oh crap, how's he gonna fix that? Well, he fixes it with magic in the next movie because they need an Avenger. And not only does he fix it with magic, but he screws the spell up because this version of Peter Parker is stupid. Oh, also another thing before I like wrap this up, like another thing I don't get about this version of Spider-Man, does he care about like anybody other like that's like close to him? His Uncle Ben is dead. He never talks about that. Tony Stark is dead. You don't even see him mourning over that dude. Like this is a man he was obsessed with. Like all he like ever like wanted to do was like be an Avenger, hang out with Tony, and all this other stuff. And now Tony is deader than dirt. And you don't see him mourn him like whatsoever and Far From Home. And it's just like he's all like, well, I like MJ, I want to go on this field trip and everything. You never see this dude sad about anything. And the thing about Peter Parker Spider-Man is that he's always upset about something. He has the weight of his feelings and things that are around him and the weight of the world always on his shoulders. And this dude's just like, whatever. And so I don't get why they wrote him so callous and everything. It's just he only cares about what he wants and getting whatever girls in the next movie and stuff. One thing that also kind of bugs me a little bit, it's kind of like there's no Oscorp in this like universe. There's no Osborn, no Oscorp, no Harry, because Harry's supposed to be like his best friend. They replaced him with Ned. So it's kind of like I kind of missed that dynamic between him and like one of the Osborns, It's like this dude literally has no villains of his own. Adrian Toomes later on became his villain after he's technically a Tony Stark villain, but like towards the end of Homecoming, I think he becomes good. And so like then Scorpion is all talking about like building a team or some crap like that, and then all of a sudden now Adrian Toomes in every post-end credit scene he's all like, I'm trying to start a team. And now he's like in the Sony verse. So what the world are they doing with that? And what happened to Scorpion? Why couldn't Scorpion be a villain? And for Peter and stuff, but they could have brought him into the third movie. They never did. And so that would have been a whole lot more interesting if they would have had him instead of Mysterio. because I doubt people would have believed Scorpion if he found out what's his name's secret identity. And so, also when it comes to Liz Allen, who they retconned to be like Toon's daughter, she was a senior, so she was older than him, so she left. I don't know if she got like dusted or what, but I now know that from like the third movie, she's one of those people talking about, oh, Spider-Man's a liar, you can't trust him, when they found out his secret identity. So it's like, dude, she turned on him just like that, but yet she's all still for her like murderous father. Like that don't make no sense and stuff. It's like she never cared for him. I also don't like how they made this Spider-Man a murderer. Because look, I don't care what nobody says. And in-game, he told his AI system to activate the kill mode, and he started killing those alien dog things. Now, many people have used the excuse that, oh, the alien dog things were just genetic beasts with no mind, no will. How do we truly know that? Like what? Because the Russos said that after the movie got made. Look, the Russos are pulling a J.K. Rowling. Whereas after the movie's over with, they're saying, oh yeah, this happened. This is really what happened. Well, if it don't happen in the movie, then technically it's not canon. So for all we know, we don't know those things are clone beasts or whatever. They could just be like animal beasts, and they just like, became like domesticated by Thanos and everything. And he literally just like slaughtered them like left and right. That's a very un-Spider-Man thing to do. Now, one teeny tiny nitpick is I'm getting tired of him cussing. Now, one thing Stan Lee said is that he never wanted Spider-Man to cuss and everything. And I was okay when Toby did it in the third movie because the symbiote took over. But the MCU one is always cussing in every movie and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, to me, that just goes against what Stan Lee wanted for, like, the character. They did so much stuff that goes against what Stan Lee wanted for this character. And it's hard to call him Spider-Man because he's not really Spider-Man. And I believe they made No Way Home the way they did because of all the fan complaints of this version of Spider-Man being that of Iron Man Jr. Heck, when after he got out of that jail, he called Happy because he couldn't get a hold of Nick and he had no way to get back home. So what happens? Happy gives him the machine of Stark Industry to build himself a new suit. And when he does that, what does Happy's all like? Oh, you make your suit, I'll pick the music. And of course, it's Led Zeppelin, Iron Man's music. And then all of a sudden, he turns to Happy's all like, I love Led Zeppelin. First of all, he's too young to even know who he is because this Peter, when he started off in Civil War, he's only 15. And of course, he took that 5-year absence when he died, like a year later. So he's only like 16, 17, something like that. And it's self-evident that this dude is Iron Man Jr., the Iron Man music, the Iron Man tech. He built a new suit with none of the AI features in it, but he, whatchamacallem, just built his new suit with the whole mechanical looking spider and stuff. And not only that, but they took away the blue and red color scheme and gave him more of a Miles Morales color scheme. They still won't bring Miles in, but they gonna like bring this dude in and at least have him steal from it. And then the big question is, in No Way Home, one thing that bugs me is I wanted all the Spider-Man to wear their blue and red outfit, but of course he doesn't because they had to still keep him as Iron Man Jr. And his suit with Karen in it is still fully functional. There's nothing wrong with that suit, but he completely abandoned it, almost like they forgot that suit even exists when they got into the third movie. And not only that, but technically that suit is still in the second movie. It's just in his like suitcase and everything. So I don't get it. And cause like no, then I forgot to mention something. There is literally no Uncle Ben in this movie. Iron Man Tony Stark is now his new uncle figure. That is not good enough for me. This dude never learned his valuable lesson of great power come great responsibility because everything is literally given to him by Tony Stark. And there is reference to that of what's his face, Ben Parker, by the briefcase initials, and I think they might have made a slight reference to him in the third movie. But other than that, what happened to this man? Did he die? Did he walk off? Did he die the way he dies in the comic? Did he die of a disease? Did he just leave Aunt May and went with somebody else? Like, what is the deal with this dude? We don't know because they don't want to tell us and everything. And so many people are like, oh, I don't want to see him die again. Get over it. Let the dude die like he does in every other movie and every other comic and stuff. That's what he's supposed to do. Get over it. Because you need that emotional attachment to Peter Parker as to why he does what he does. But we don't know why he does what he does. Same thing with MJ. Why is she emo for? Why is she fixated with death? We know nothing about her parents. Nothing whatsoever. So what makes her an emo girl and everything? Ned, we find out in the third movie, like, why is he so goofy and silly and zany and stuff? When we meet his mom or grandma, whoever she is, she's not like that. She's very chill and everything. And so why are these characters the way that they are? There's nothing to show why they are the way they are. And because these characters are just Peter Pan's shadow that's been detached from his body and stuff. That's who these characters really are. And they're not who they're supposed to be. And it made for a lackluster experience. I wanted to buy the first two Spider-Man movies of the MCU on DVD. I will never do that. I'm debating if I'll buy the third. Like I said before, I like the third, it's better. But there are still some things in that makes you question why. And there's just some things like when I do talk about this, don't worry, it ain't gonna be bashing nothing like that. Like, I'm gonna nitpick, but I do like this movie, the third one and stuff. And speaking of titles, I hate the titles of these movies. Why is Spider-Man called Spider-Man Homecoming? Why is Spider-Man? Well, I get it because it was around homecoming time. And then the next one called Far From Home because he is far from New York. But then No Way Home makes no sense because that just don't make no sense. Because they're gonna send those villains back and everything. So it's kind of like, I don't like the titles of their movies. I would have preferred if they would call it something that reflects that the comic book. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.